Okay, a quick video to go over how you can make a scatter graph with a trend line and error bars. So I've got a bunch of data here as an example from a lab that's about some factor affecting reaction rate. So you can see we had some mass data that was the variable being varied in this practice example. And we eventually have three rate values for three different trials: rate for trial 1, trial 2, and trial 3. So for the first treatment, these are the rate values. We have 0.023, 0.025, and 0.023 again. So you can use Excel, if you recall, to calculate an average by using the equals average function and highlighting the boxes that you want to average. I've also used Excel in this example to get my uncertainty. The uncertainty method that we're using is called the half the range method. So I used actually an Excel function called maximum, so equals max, and I had it select the highest value, the maximum value in these three trials. And then I did the same for the minimum. So it's basically having Excel pick out the highest value from my three trials and then the lowest value from my three trials. The way that we're calculating uncertainty is the difference between the max and the min is something we call the range of values that you got. And then we're dividing that by 2 to get half of that value. So I have an equation that I've created here where it equals the maximum box minus the minimum box divided by 2. And that's half the uncertainty. So I've done that for all 5 treatments. These are the 5 treatments of mass. These are now the 5 average values. And these are the 5 uncertainty values. So what I've done is I've rewritten them down here in a new spot just to make it a bit simpler. And so when I do a scatter graph, I need to highlight the X and the Y values. So I'm going to redo my graph now. I need to highlight the X and Y values here. And then I'm going to insert a chart. I go up to Insert, and I go to Chart, and I'm going to pick X, Y, Scatter. If you have a version of Excel where you can see the pictures, when you do Insert, you should be able to see these dots here. So I'm going to pick the Scatter Graph option, and that has now plotted the data points. For the sake of time, I won't put in the axes, labels, and titles right now, but you can do that by going over here to Quick Layout and picking a quick layout for you that allows you to put those things in. What I want to do now is I want to add error bars and I want to add a trend line. So I click on my data points and I'm going to go over up to the top left where I get Add Chart Element. And in this area, I can add both error bars and trend line in the same spot. I'll do error bars first. I'm going to go to the More Error Bar options and I'm going to specify the values. So I highlight those values that I want to be my plus and minus for my error bar. So I do that for both the plus and minus. Now it automatically puts error bars in both directions. I don't want these error bars that are going left to right that are horizontal. I only want the ones that are vertical. I can double check when I'm done if they make sense because I can see that this last uncertainty value, 0.013, is a lot bigger than the other uncertainty values. And sure enough, on my graph, it's a much larger error bar. So that's one way to double check if I've done it right. I also want to add a trend line. So I'm going to click on my data points again before doing this, add chart element, add trend line. And right away, it gives me the option of linear. So it's added this line now to my graph. If I want to click on that line, I now have the option over here on the right of formatting that trend line. I'm going to click on these, the bar chart picture. I can switch the type of trend line it is. So exponential is more of a curve, so I could try that. That actually fits my data quite well, and I could do that one. If I stick with linear, I want to display the equation on my chart and display the R squared value on the chart. I can pull that off to the side so it's not blocked by the line. Now I have an equation for this trend line. That's the relationship in my data, and the R squared value is giving me a measure of how well my data points actually fit to this trend line. So hopefully that covers the basics of plotting a scatter graph, adding a trend line, and adding error bars for your data.